This week's episode is brought to you by the folks at Universal Pictures Home Video to celebrate their release of Obsession. They've been kind enough to give us a copy to pass along to one of you. If you want to get your hands on it, we're running a quick giveaway. Just send an email over to editor@followingfilms.com with the subject line, I want Obsession, and tell us why you should win. Make sure you include your full name and your mailing address in the body of the email so we'll know where to send it if your name gets drawn. As for today's show, we have a really interesting one for you. If you're looking for something new to check out at the cinema this weekend, you're in luck, because the movie we're talking about hits theaters today, July 17th, and it's called Horsegirls. It centers on a 22-year-old woman named Margarita, who's trying to figure out her own independence while dealing with her mother's illness returning. What makes this dynamic so fascinating is that Margarita has autism, and she finds her outlet and a sense of control through the world of hobbyhorsing. Yes, we're talking about competitive stick horse riding. It's a subculture that a lot of people might dismiss or find odd at first glance, but the film uses it to look at messy, complicated family dynamics and what it actually takes to prove you can stand on your own 2 feet. To break it all down, we're chatting with the filmmakers themselves, Lillian and Lauren Meyering. They joined the show today to talk about bringing this specific world to life, avoiding the usual Hollywood cliches about neurodiversity, and getting into the real, sometimes uncomfortable friction between parents and adult children. It's a great conversation, and I think you're going to get a lot out of it. Before we jump into the interview, do me another quick favor. If you're enjoying the podcast, take a second to hit subscribe. Leave us a review on whatever platform you're listening on, and share the episode with a friend who enjoys indie cinema. It really helps the show grow. All right, let's get into my conversation with Lillian and Lauren. Hope you enjoy the show. Thanks. Thank you both so much for taking the time to do this. I really appreciate it. This is a very unusual movie in that I've never seen a moment played out 3 times in a film that gave me a different reaction every time. There's a tripping that happens that makes me laugh. It makes me very sad. And then it made me cry at the end of the film. And so there's these 3 things that happen. It's kind of the emotional arc of this character that you see through this film. And it's just an absolutely beautiful story that, so I'm a dad, I have 2 kids, and to see, one of my children is neurotypical, the other's neurodivergent. And to see a film like this was really important. But it's a film that I think that will speak to anybody that has a kid, because the greatest fears you have are that your kid won't find their own community, that they won't find their tribe, and that they won't be able to live without you, which is more of our narcissism than anything else. But how could they possibly exist without us? So could you guys just talk a little bit about, Lauren, talk a little bit about the story, how this came to you? Where did this inspiration for this come from?
Oh, that was so beautifully said. Oh my goodness, thank you. I mean, honestly, it was just like, I've always been, for me, it's like, I always love coming of age stories, regardless of the age. I like female driven stories. I love mother-daughter relationships. And like you said, where it's like everyone has their own kind of niche community or tribe or like place where they fit in, where they finally feel seen as a person, or like, oh, these people are like me. When I stumbled upon a hobby horsing video on YouTube, it was like, how has no one made a movie about this? Or, I didn't even know there was a documentary about it at the time, but it's just like, what? And then the more social media came about and the more, like TikTok became a thing and suddenly clips of these girls were going viral. But I kind of happened upon it even before all of that, like back in 2018 as like a recommended video on YouTube. And then, my best friend, Mackenzie Breeden, who's a producer on the project, she, had seen it too. And she was like, how has this not been a movie? I'm like, I agree. We should write this movie, and you're saying this kind of joking, but you're just like, why not? And then we were talking about the main character and how to create it. And she was like, I want you to meet my sister, Marguerite. And she lived in Colorado at the time and she was coming out for the weekend. And it was like in that moment, meeting her and seeing the world through her perspective and her lens and watching how she navigates it, especially in a world that, is not at all easy for someone to have to navigate through in general, let alone with someone on the spectrum, you know,
Sure.
and just watching how she interacted with the world. And I was like, is this our character? Is this our movie? You know, and Mac was just like, we were talking about just different elements of her and how to put elements of the real Marguerite into Margarita, you know, and there's some similarities and there's some differences, but, and then at the time also I was teaching at a school for kids with like, it was like emotional and kind of behavioral issues.
Sure.
And there were so many kids on the spectrum in that class. And so I just felt like I had the great opportunity of being surrounded by this, being like, wow, God, like how do we not have more stories like this, but through the lens of not it being like, oh, and despite their disability, how inspiring are they? Rather
Yeah.
than just it's coming of age, it's a life story. Like everyone has to deal with crappy things in their life, whether it's a parent getting cancer or just applying to get a job. You know, it was just like I never wanted it to be the lens of like, oh, how inspiring. You know, it was just that was
Yes.
the last thing we wanted it to be. So
Well, it's
that was how it
not.
came to be. Thank you.
Well, not to me. And that's
Yeah.
something that I wanted to touch on actually was the idea of representation, I think is really important always. But my favorite kind of representation is when it's just secondary, when it's just the part of a fabric of society, when it's not the central point of it. This is a story that is so utterly universal because the theme, you make something that's highly, highly specific between this girl's experience and the things that she loves and things she's passionate about, but it could be anything.
Right.
It is, I think it's utterly relatable. You don't have to be in this or know this particular situation to relate to it. So, Lillian, could you talk a little bit about working with Lauren and trusting her? Because this film is squarely on your shoulders, and if your role doesn't work, the movie's not going to work. And so you had to trust her a lot. How did you gain that trust that you're in good hands?
I mean, I feel like with acting, like a lot of that is just you gotta trust the team. You do your job, and hopefully the team makes you look good in the end. And they can very easily, yeah, not do that. So yeah, I mean, Lauren, first time creating a project, so like that was scary.
I don't know why you would have
Like,
trusted me, honestly.
but like, I mean, the money helps. But like also like there was a whole team like Sherman and Alex having made countless stuff beforehand, and the stuff like it was really good stuff there,
Yeah.
and them trusting in you and like having them there for sure. And then, but you like when we talked and we went through like the script and went through like okay, what was your vision? What are you seeing? And we got together. Like it really did put like a lot of faith there that I could just like take the leap and do my stuff and you'll do your stuff. Also just being clueless on how all that stuff works helps a lot because like I don't know what lens that is or why that lighting is working, but like when I look at the screen it looks pretty, so good job. And then I do my job. Right, I didn't go to film school. I don't know all that stuff, but I trust whatever verbiage you're saying that sounds like gibberish is right.
Well, was there a point in the reading of the script or that you said, okay, I get this character. This makes sense to me? Because it's obviously a wildly different experience from your own, but there are some universal truths here. But was there a point where you said, okay, I get this character. I know how to play this?
No. Like, I don't think there was ever just like, I got this. I think every scene we were like, here's what we want. How are we going to achieve that? Like, it was a rough road, especially, I mean, I had to do karaoke, I had to ride a bike, I had to go on wires, I had to live in an imaginary world where things weren't actually there and they were put in post. Like working like the dynamic on every storyline that was filmed out of order, and then like I was doing just 1 week in the Halloween store and we did all that, and then all
Yeah.
this then we went to the hobby horse place, and I'm like, okay, but where I came from the Halloween store that I filmed next week, and then this week I come here and then I'm going like it, that's hard.
It is.
And I was like really glad to have that person who was telling me, okay, so remember when you filmed that, you came from there. And then after that, you're going to go to a scene that we haven't filmed yet. And like they would tell me that stuff and it was really helpful. But like it was mostly, yeah, a lot of it was really talking in every scene of like, what do we want out of it? Here's the goal, and working together as a team to get there, as well as like the other actors did a lot of heavy lifting too to make sure that they reacted correctly into the ways my character did
But
things.
it's one of the most challenging parts of film acting to me personally.
It's the
Limited amount of
trap.
acting that I've done, theatrical acting is easy because you ramp up to it every night. You
Yep.
know where you are, you build that, and to
I think
stop
to be
and
an actor, you just have to be comfortable embarrassing yourself.
that's it.
Like
Yeah.
that's just like it, because like everything you do feels silly, and then you just hope in that editing room they will make you not look silly anymore. Because even like out of context, you just get a scene with nothing else. You're like, this looks crazy.
Like, why am I crying singing American Pie? Like, you know why you're crying, but in the moment, like, that was something too that
Like,
I,
this feels like too much. This might be.
yeah, having no lead up to it, and then like, yeah, it's so true. I mean, that's why I just like, and Lillian speaks so candidly, and this is what I loved that she talked to me about, and she can talk more about, but just like, when you're trying to start to get to know each other, I'm like, how'd you get into acting? She's like, well, I basically am acting my whole life. Like she like basically flat out said that, where she's like, I didn't really know, like she's like, acting to me is like, you're actually telling me how I should react. And she's like, and that's sometimes I wish someone would do that to me in reality, and I'm like, I just love her ability to explain things like that, because it's like, for me, even though I'm like, yes, I can't relate to that, I'm like, I fully understand, because there are other times in life where you're like, how should I react to this? And she so perfectly puts it into words, like, just with this experience, like, because I'm like, how are you so talented at like flipping a switch and becoming Margarita? And the moment I call cut, she just goes back to just kind of chilling and sitting there. And I'd be like, are you okay? And she'd be like, yep. And like, it was just like watching a magician do work. Like, it was like, and I'm like, but when she explained it to me, she's like, I mean, it's kind of what I do in life. Like, I was like, holy cow. Yeah, this girl's been training for this her whole life without even realizing it. in
Well,
in the best way, like, and like, I don't know, there was just so much that she brought to the character. And like, we talk about this so much in the authentic casting with it, but like, obviously I can only go so far in what I write, and like with working with the real Marguerite, and then bringing in Lillian and her twin sister Chloe, who is our autism sensitivity coordinator, and then Alex Plank, who is our artistic producer. Like, they have an incredible phrase that I love that they taught me, which is just nothing about us without us. And as obvious as that sounds, it's,
sure.
the irony, we know how rare it is. And so she was able to every day. I mean, I don't think there was a day that passed where it was just like, well, here's what I'm thinking. It's, and I do say this, but I was like, directing this movie, to me at least, felt more like listening than talking,
And it should be. It
Yeah,
should be
as it
really,
should be.
especially when you're trying to capture somebody else's point of view, and that you need to trust somebody who's lived in that experience.
Exactly.
But you touched on something that I actually wanted to ask about, Lily, which for women, there's something that's very difficult. Society, we make women present in a certain way that might be unnatural. And so for women that are neurodivergent, they oftentimes go undiagnosed because they mask so much through their interactions, and we encourage them to mask. And for boys, we don't do that as much. We allow them to be there, and it comes out much sooner. So was that part of what she was referring to that made you a strong actor, was the societal masking that you've had to do?
Yeah. So I wasn't diagnosed until 16,
Okay.
which for a boy is late diagnosed. For a woman is currently very early.
Yep.
And we need to work on that.
Yes, we do.
But
Agreed.
yeah, so I didn't have the diagnosis to explain it, but I did know that I was struggling socially very early on. And I learned also that you can't ask questions, because when you make someone mad and you go, why are you making that face? Why are you mad? It just makes them more mad, right? When they're sad and crying and you're like, what did I do? It doesn't work. But when I went to a summer camp that had acting involved, I learned I could ask all those questions and people would answer and people would help me. And that's where I learned that I didn't have the natural facial expressions, because when I did what came natural to me, they were like, "What are you doing with your face? Oh, so it's not, this isn't sad?"
Yeah.
And that's where I learned, like I did a bunch of acting classes to like learn the social tools and dissect like why people react certain way and how to respond and how to use facial expressions and body language and everything. And like it wasn't a plan to be an actor at all, but it became a very useful tool when it became an option in life. And they're like, "We want autistic people to play autistic people." I'm like,
You're like, sign me up. I got
let's
you.
try that. Let's see how that works. And yeah, so I think it's for those, yeah, women who do mask, especially like, I think play based is a lot of the reason why the women do it more. Is like as a very young child, boys are like they're playing with the cars or they're playing like sports related. If you're good at the activity, you're fine. Girls are playing dolls and house and mermaids, and if you can't socially interact in those ways and you do something weird, you're not, you don't fit in and you get ostracized. Where I feel like boys don't get that need to mask as quickly, and it hits in middle school when that play is removed and now you just have to sit and socialize. That's when they're like, "Oh, I'm different," because they can't just be included based on a skill they have.
Can you talk a little bit, because the facial expression element of it, you're a very good actor, because the end of the film, the final sequence, I don't want to give it away, but the emotion that you carry in that and what I'm projecting onto you, and that the it's just such a powerhouse, and it's all silent. It's all done in your face. It's everything, and your eyes carry so much weight in that moment. It's just beautiful acting. So you picked it up and you did a beautiful job with it. So what were you thinking about in those last moments? How did you make that work so well?
But okay, so again, that was the hardest thing to do. So where I'm in the air and the camera does not get it. What was I, like 12 feet in the air? Like I was so high, and
Very high.
the way they were like, "Look here," and I'm like, what am I looking at? Because the camera was moving, and they're like, "You can't look at the camera. You gotta pretend you're not on wires, and you gotta hold the hobby horse." And then, yeah, so it was kind of like a magical moment to just be in the air and just be like. So, I don't know exactly what I was thinking, but I know what I was trying to portray on my face, and like I had to have this like in between smile that I'm like, I'm not happy because there's mourning and sadness
Yeah.
in there, but as well, it's like that. I feel like I don't know how to explain. Like the dogs have this like look in their eyes. They look up at you with such hope
Yeah.
and faith and belief in you, and that was kind of like what I was aiming for. Is that like hope of like it's gonna be okay, and I have faith it will be okay in the end type of. And like that's what I was going for, and I'm very glad you picked up on that. Yeah.
Well, this is a film that I think you can watch it, and depending on your mood, it could be either devastating or it could be very hopeful and empowering. And so I think it's more of a litmus test of the individual viewer than it is of the film itself, that there's certain things you'll dial into. And so, Lauren, could you talk about the balance of this? Because this is a film that is very funny, very touching. Your characters are allowed to be, pardon my language, they're allowed to be assholes at times, which is great, which they're allowed to be human, which is, I really appreciate when people are unlikable in moments. So you didn't shy away from that, which is really good.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. That was something that, we talked about a lot, where it was just like, honestly, for me, it was just balancing. Obviously, it's like you say the word cancer and it's just like, oh boy. And you hear a cancer movie or a cancer story, you know exactly what you're signing up for in that way. And I was 12 when my mom was going through cancer. And like, just the thing that kind of made me, that was so surprising to me, was how you just have to have life go on, and how you go about your day, and I'm going to fifth grade amongst my classmates, and like having to pretend, but also not even pretending, but just knowing like back at home my mom is like, getting chemo dripped into her,
Yeah.
and not knowing like what's going to happen and being so scared. But then at the same time, you're 12 and you're all of a sudden the bell rings for recess and you're allowed to be happy and go play at recess. It's not just one feeling the whole time. And for me, it was just, I didn't want that to feel like, oh, it's a cancer story. It's like that
Yeah.
wasn't the point. In the same way, it wasn't, oh, it's about autism, where it's like,
Yeah.
oh, despite all of this, it's going to be so inspiring to people. It was just, no, this is just what life is. And like, let's just put this on the screen. And for me, like the biggest thing as far as the humor goes was that I always wanted it to feel like, because the audience was so in Margarita's perspective. In the beginning of the movie, you're a little like, whoa, who is this girl? But as you slowly creep into it, at first it's very jarring, but by the end, you are so in her mindset and who she is that by the time she's saying things, like when she's like, hey, could you give me a ride to the competition? It's like
Yeah.
you are so on her team that you almost are forgetting how surprising that sounds, like where it's like you're never ever laughing at her. You're laughing at the idea that society and the rest of the world is like, because you're like, well, yeah, I mean, that's what she's thinking about, and so that was always just the balance. It was never like, oh, she said a punchline to a joke. It was, she's being authentic, and it's ironic that our world isn't this authentic, and that's the humor in it.
It's never, you're never pointing a finger when you're never laughing at this character by any stretch of the imagination. But there are moments when we all do things that are funny unintentionally. I
100%.
mean, probably one of the funniest things that's ever happened to me was when my son, who's neurodivergent, who's 10 now, when he was 3, me and my wife were laughing, and he couldn't understand. And to the idea of the words he used, though, it's not that he said, why you go ha ha ha. And so at 3, and it was just this thing that he was trying, and it
Wow.
was what he was trying to understand, the joke that he didn't get, but his phrasing of it was just so, it just killed us. So it's two things. It's like one of the warmest things. It's such a happy memory for me. And it's also very funny to us as well. And he thinks it's hilarious now. He gets it, why it's funny, but it is one of those things you come around on. And I never feel like Margarita is never the punchline of it. She's never we're never pointing at her, but I love that you made her social group awkward, and you made them not immediately her world. That was so important, that there is this outsider, and people kind of have to learn. And we're better equipped as a society now than we ever have been before, but we have a long way to go. Long way to go. We have to do, like what you're referring to. We have to do a lot more listening than talking at this point. So I'm talking too much while I say that. So Lillian, could you just talk about that idea of joining that group in that moment? And was that something that you felt where you have those moments of an outsider and bring your own personal experience to that?
Yes. I mean, again, that was something that was like talked about, especially me and Gerard talking about the girls. And I brought up with Lauren again the age gap being a thing of like, we want to portray this where like there's not a creepiness and a discomfort with a 22-year-old being in this class of girls. And that they're like, she understands the boundaries of like, yes, we're sort of friends, but we're not really friends. Like
Yeah.
this is the closest thing I can get to having a place where I belong, and I'm still on the outside. And it was like really important to play that dynamic in the right way, which shows that like autistic people can have a sense of nuance, right? That we can find those and understand certain boundaries while crossing others that don't make sense to us, right? And yeah, and especially talking to the girls who don't have the mindset of that team, and
Yes.
going like, they were really trying to understand, because they understood mean girl energy, and they
Yes.
were doing that. But when I sat them down, I'm like, I need to aim this a little bit more toward the ableism side than just she's not one of us.
Mm-hmm.
and especially like Bria playing Pinky, who like seemed to get it after I explained it, and the way she says her lines in a way of like, you are less than me, your mind is broken and I'm gonna judge you for that. And the way like she was like, I'm better than you as a teenager, and like she nailed it when it was explained to her. And but the way like some of them are so shocked that people even think that way. I'm like, you're being raised so right. And I'm so glad that
Yes.
you have this feeling. And like, they respected me on set, and like, they were having so much fun. They were like, we gotta make fun of you.
Yeah. It's true. We had to sit them down, especially when we were doing the scene with Matthew. They were appalled at
Good. That's
like,
wonderful.
like we had to take them off set, and she's like, I don't feel comfortable. Like you could tell without her saying it, she was what, 11? She did not feel comfortable telling Matthew like, oh, that's so cool. Like she had a hard time. And I actually had to be like, let's sit down and talk. Cause I'm like, and it's Lillian, exactly what she said, where it was just like, we actually had to take a moment and like be like, wow, thank God these girls were raised so right. They were just appalled in the best way.
That's amazing. That's wonderful to hear. That's when I hear things from my teenage son at this point and his ideas, because I'm almost 50 now. I'll be 50 at the end of this month. And to hear his perspective on the world and things that were not very warm and welcoming to, to just, we were bullies. We were terrible, terrible people in the 90s. It was not a comfortable time. And so to see his perspective on things and it's not just us as parents, it's a society. We've moved a lot further. So I'm very thrilled. We have a lot to learn from the kids for sure.
We do. We really do.
I know we're at time right now, but this is a wonderful film. So thank you both for taking the time, and congratulations on this. I think it's a really, really wonderful movie. It's powerful, but it's not something that feels like homework, and I highly recommend it to anybody. So congrats, guys.
Thank you, Christopher. It was so nice to meet you.
You as well. Thank you. I hope I can talk to you guys on the next one.
Definitely. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
And I don't want to go home, not this time. You think the story gets old, but I don't mind. After all the things she said to me, after all I know she cares, but that night I was not alright. I've never been there, so I was quite scared. So I've never been there, so I was quite scared. Oh, and I remember all the words she said to me. Now I know she's got me figured out, figured out, figured out. And I don't wanna go home, not tonight. Just let me talk about all the old times. Just drink until it's funny, babe. I feel future solemn stare, but I know I'm alright. I've never been there, so I was quite scared. So I've never been there, so I was quite scared. Oh, and I remember all the words she said to me. Now I know she's got me figured out, figured out, figured out. I miss my friends, I miss my friends so. I miss my friends, I miss my friends so.